Good morning, everyone. It's Friday, October 30th. From the San Antonio Express News, my name is Luis Vasquez, and this is your Express Briefing. All of the stories you need to know to start your day. You can expect sunny skies and a high of 71 degrees in San Antonio today. We're expecting more sun and highs in the mid-70s this weekend. Today is the last day to cast your ballot early in Texas before Election Day on Tuesday. In Texas, polling sites have been 100-foot safety zones. What can and cannot happen within these boundaries at voting station is spelled out in election laws. We have a quick explainer at expressnews.com. An appellate court put on hold a lower court's order allowing Attorney General Ken Paxton's felony securities fraud case to move to his hometown of Collin County. Thursday's decision marks the latest delay in a case that stalled for 5 years without a trial. And now let's move on to our top stories for the day. In the South Texas border village of Boca Chica, SpaceX's 17-story tall Starship dominates the flat marshland and stands ready to take off into the stratosphere. Engineers will soon launch the Starship, which is almost as wide as a city bus, to 50,000 feet and return it to Earth in the most ambitious test so far for the vertically landing spacecraft. SpaceX has already colonized Texas with sites in McGregor and Boca Chica, and as the Starship takes off, its momentum could accelerate the state's commercial space economy into a new universe of jobs and business opportunities. In our latest collaboration with Report for America, Brandon Lingo has more on the trial and SpaceX breakout year. The Express News has reported more than 24 openings or announcements of new restaurants in the past few months. And this begs the question, who the heck looks at a year of raging pandemic with restaurant and bar shutdowns galore, consistent occupancy caps, and no vaccine in sight and thinks, yes, the timing is perfect for a new restaurant? It's not as harebrained as it sounds though. From the real estate deals to staffing logistics to the menus, Paul Stephen breaks down why the process of opening a restaurant made sense for many in San Antonio. Bexar County District Attorney Joe Gonzalez is clashing with other members of a city-county commission on domestic violence over how to spend a pot of money that initially was set aside for the creation of a civil family violence court. Gonzalez says the new court would be a waste of Bexar County money, nearly $1 million. Instead, the district attorney wants the county to use about a quarter of the money to pay for more family violence prosecutors in his office. Brian Chasnoff takes a closer look at the debate over how to address a worsening scourge in San Antonio, where already voluminous family violence incidents have spiked during the pandemic. The Bexar County Elections Department offers sign language interpretation at 2 of the 48 early voting sites countywide, but advocates say that's not enough. In a high turnout vote, the elections office has taken heat from advocates for the deaf for not making services available at all the sites to provide equal access in the spirit of Americans with Disabilities Act. Scott Huddleston has more on what advocates say is needed at the polls and what the county is currently doing to make voting more accessible. Today is the last day of early voting in Texas. Check out our interactive map of voting locations in Bexar County and be sure to visit our 2020 Voters Guide for more information about voting, the candidates, ballot measures, and more. Next up are your need-to-know headlines. You can find all of these headlines and more inside your Express News subscription. San Antonio pet stores will no longer be allowed to sell dogs and cats from breeders effective January 1st. Instead, they will be required to sell animals from local animal rescue organizations or city shelters. Even with a high early voting turnout, officials are expecting large crowds at area voting sites, many of which are schools, on Election Day. That, combined with COVID-19 concerns, spurred these school districts to decide not to hold classes Tuesday. City and county leaders reported 201 new coronavirus cases in Bexar County Thursday night, signaling that the virus is on the rise again in the area. San Antonio is stepping up testing, education, and enforcement to arrest the new surge in COVID-19 cases. San Antonio Spurs guard Patty Mills welcomed nearly 1,000 participants to the city's first ever domestic violence symposium on Thursday, noting that the problem disproportionately affects people of color and indigenous communities throughout the world. State securities regulators have suspended a San Antonio investment advisor who dispenses financial advice on local radio for steering clients into unregistered and unsuitable investments. Brooklyn Chandler Wiley agreed to a year's suspension of her license and to pay back almost $2.8 million. A small group of prominent San Antonio progressives have come out in opposition to Mayor Ron Nirenberg's $154 million workforce development, but it could be too little too late. The Texas Education Agency is accepting applications for a statewide program to distribute millions of rapid COVID-19 tests to schools across the state. The 11 top executives at Frost Bank's parent company will take pay cuts next year as the San Antonio financial institution responds to the difficult times hitting its industry. First-time claims for unemployment insurance fell sharply in Texas and the nation last week, according to a Labor Department report. Claims in Texas fell about 25% from the previous week to fewer than 34,000, the lowest level since the coronavirus pandemic began. ExxonMobil plans to lay off 1,900 U.S. employees, primarily in the Houston area, as the nation's largest oil company looks to reorganize and cut costs during the coronavirus-driven oil downturn. The Texas Longhorns football program lost a commitment from five-star South Lake Carroll recruit Quinn Ewers, the number one prospect from the class of 2022 per 24/7 Sports rankings. Sports columnist Mike Finger writes, "None of these so-called failures of analytics discredit the idea of statistical analysis any more than Justin Turner disproved the consensus of the medical community. Just because he didn't make his entire team sick doesn't mean it's a good idea for those with the coronavirus to congregate maskless." When the Black Lives Matter protests began, Western artist Mark Maggiore wanted to express his support through his work but wasn't quite sure how to do that. Then he ran across a vintage photograph of a black cavalryman. Quote, "I don't recall any painting of black working cowboys, and so I was like, that's what I need to do," said Maggiore, who is white. "I need to paint black cowboys because nobody else did it." The painting, called Once Upon a Time, depicts a pair of black cowboys riding the range. Maggiore decided to donate the work to the Briscoe Western Art Museum, which unveiled it as part of its 7th birthday celebration last week. You can read more about the painting and the artist at expressnews.com. While many apples on the supermarket shelves right now will become pies, tarts, and other sweet treats this fall, apples are just as versatile on the savory side of the kitchen as well. We've cooked up 5 dishes to celebrate their savory potential at expressnews.com. Saturday's main event at the Alamo Dome pits Gervonta Davis versus Leo Santa Cruz as part of the first championship-level card that will allow spectators to be on hand since the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. Bar 1919, a Southtown original, is returning after waiting months for the green light for bars to reopen amid the coronavirus pandemic. With our weather and tight growing seasons, transplants are usually the most successful way to go, but Calvin Finch has your guide to fall plants to grow from seed, while Neil Sperry answers readers' questions about peach trees and more in his Down-to-Earth column. And that's all for today. This was your Express Briefing for Friday, October 30th. My name is Luis Vasquez. Please consider becoming an Express News subscriber to get in-depth coverage on all the stories you heard today. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast inside of your Apple Podcast app, as it really helps the show. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.